The other thing that stood out as important to me is the fact that the president of the World Economic Forum, Borge Brande, in an interview I did with him, refers to the emergence of a G3. Remember, the last several years have been about G2, the United States and China. He says in the next 10 years, India will be a $10 trillion economy and the global order will be defined by the G3. So let me just play out a quick excerpt of what the WEF president told us, and then we'll go across the panel and get their sense on whether this is the inevitable way forward or is this more hype. Listen in. India this year is the president of the G20. And Prime Minister Modi will be hosting the Big Leaders Summit in early September. How do you see India's presidency? PM Modi has just given Business Today an exhaustive interview, his first on the G20, where he sees the G20 emerge as a catalyst for a new global order. And there's a lot of talk about emerging as a leader of the global south. How do you see India's efforts at trying to be a catalyst in establishing a new global order?
It is true that there is a new order, but there are fundamental economic changes going on, and that we do know. So the economists at the World Economic Forum also definitely are saying that India will become the third largest economy in the world in a couple of years. So you're bypassing Germany and Japan, and it will be then the US, China, the so-called G2. But my prediction, and I coined this for you here today, I think in a decade we will be faced with a G3.
Wow, that's interesting. Can we have a round of applause, please?
And
this is the first time I'm hearing of G3.
Yeah, the G3 is the US, China and India, and that is a new reality. So far, India has not really leveraged its strength in politics. India has been a little bit shy. What Prime Minister Modi is showing now is that India play a more important role when it comes to shaping.
Okay, so this is an outside-in voice looking at the India story in a global context. Ashok Malik, your first reaction on this construct of a G3? I mean, as an Indian, it instinctively warms and gladdens my heart. But I also know from experience in history that nothing can be taken for granted, and 10 years is an incredibly long time in global politics.
That is true, and quite frankly, if you heard the Prime Minister's Independence Day speech, and even in other speeches, he is trying to caution India against premature celebration. He's talking about a period of a multi-year, multi-term, multi-decade period of very hard striving and work. We've made huge progress in the past 10 years, especially in infrastructure, in logistics, to try and make India much more appealing to business, both Indian business and global business. But we will have to continue striving. We should guard against premature celebration. The world is ripe for India's rise. The geopolitical and geo-economic currents are intersecting in our favor, but we have to keep striving. Continuity, predictability, and stability at home is very, very important.
Shankar Iyer, this idea of a G3, you know, the manner in which the WEF president says it, and he travels internationally, the institute studies everything that's happening in India and globally, and they think that that's the trajectory over the next 10 years.
Well, he's not saying something surprising, Rahul. You know, the BRICS report, which came out in 2000, said that India would be the third largest. Over the last 10 years, the CEBR in UK has said it, and a number of economists have laid this out based on the trajectory.
No, but this is not just about the size of the economy. It's a mix of the size of the economy, the country's comprehensive national power, the ability to leverage its population, its people, its demography, its size in a geopolitical context.
So that's true. What is interesting here is the framing of the point that several economists and others have made over the past 2 decades. The framing of G3, however, is not exactly the framing that Mr. Modi wants to have. His entire framing of how India is placed, whether it is vis-a-vis China, vis-a-vis other countries, is very simple, is that the G20 was formed after the global financial crisis. The world is facing a series of crises now. After the global financial crisis, the world came together by the formation of G20. Now the G20 is trying to bring together a very divided world. And so he's using all the aspects of diplomacy, economy, politics to bring that together, which is what needs to be appreciated in the G20 summit. What is the role of digital infrastructure? The digital role of infrastructure is to enable countries in Africa and other developing countries to deliver on time, efficiently and without corruption. What is the role of the multilateral agencies to be able to deliver credit on time? How do we make that happen is to change the voting pattern in those institutions. What is the issue with debt relief? Is China is holding number of countries to ransom, if I may say so, or in a difficult, puts the multilateral agencies in a difficult position. So debt relief is important. How will India reach its target of being the third largest and then move further ahead? Is how does the world tackle the challenges of climate change, technology, and of course demography? So this is a complete package, and the framing of G3, frankly, is very nice to hear, Rahul. As you said, all Indians, all of us like to hear that, but we know that India is headed that way. What is important for India is to figure out the pathway, not to sort of get carried away, not to. So the point that the Prime Minister makes in his interview, he's so cautious. The first question, again, I'm saying that it's a very candid and very thoughtful answer.